Okay, so who hasn't fantasized about ditching their job and becoming their own boss? Even better if you can do it with like less than $100, right?
Right.
We found 3 articles completely stuffed with low-cost business ideas.
Wow.
I'm talking nearly 200. But let's be real for a second, you know?
Yeah.
We're here to seriously dig into this. This is a deep dive, not some quick glance at a bunch of empty promises.
That's right. Got to separate the too good to be true from the genuinely viable options. And that means thinking beyond just the low startup costs.
Exactly. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype. Those headlines are practically designed for it.
Yeah.
So listeners, if you've ever thought about a side hustle or even taking the leap into full-time entrepreneurship, buckle up. We're going to unpack what it really takes to build a business up from nothing, even on a super tight budget.
What I think is really interesting is that, yeah, there's definitely some hype we need to cut through.
Okay.
But it's not all smoke and mirrors. The digital age has created some genuinely interesting opportunities.
Okay, so there's hope. Don't leave us hanging. Give us the good stuff. What kind of businesses can you actually start with almost no cash?
Well, freelancing's a great example. Writers, designers, virtual assistants, the internet's your office, and your skills, that's your startup money right there.
Yeah, you're selling not like physical stuff.
Exactly.
So no need to invest in inventory.
Right, exactly. Then there's service businesses, pet sitting, dog walking, cleaning, errands. Often you just need your time, some effort, maybe print some flyers, and you're good to go.
I saw a ton of those in these articles. What about things like online tutoring or drop shipping? Those seem to be everywhere these days.
Oh, absolutely. Both great examples of businesses using platforms that already exist.
Okay.
With online tutoring, you're basically selling knowledge, using Zoom or specific tutoring websites to connect with students. And dropshipping is really fascinating. You're like the middleman between the buyer and the supplier. So you don't need to worry about handling any inventory yourself.
This is sounding pretty good, and I'm sure you'll agree there's always a but.
Yep.
Just because you can get started with very little cash doesn't mean it's an easy path to, riches and success, right?
Right.
In fact, I noticed these articles, they tend to kind of gloss over the work part of working for yourself.
Oh, for sure. It's the classic case of low investment, but potentially very high effort.
You can say that again. So, for everyone listening, let's break this down a bit. Why is this low-cost dream not always what it's cracked up to be? What are those hidden costs they don't put in those catchy headlines? It's like those articles really emphasize the whole low-cost thing, but they kind of forget that time is money,
Absolutely. Even if you're not spending a ton of money up front,
Right.
building a client base, marketing yourself, all that takes time, serious time.
Yeah.
And that's time you're not making money somewhere else.
It's like my grandma used to say, you got to spend money to make money, or at least work your tail off. But seriously, though, just because you have a skill, that doesn't mean clients are just going to, magically appear, right?
You're totally right. So much of it, especially in the beginning, relies on word of mouth, on referrals. You really got to hustle to get those first few clients, get your foot in the door.
That is so true. I remember when I first started freelancing.
Yeah.
I was spending hours every day networking online, sending pitches out, trying to build a portfolio. It was a grind, but eventually, it paid off.
And we can't forget about competition.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these businesses, they're easy to get into, low barrier to entry.
Right.
Which means they can get really crowded really fast.
Oh, tell me about it. It seems like these days everybody and their mother is a dog walker or a freelance writer,
Exactly. So you have to ask yourself, what makes you different?
Yeah.
What do you offer that's unique, something that helps you stand out from the crowd?
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point because, let's be honest, some of these articles make it sound like everyone just has this huge network of people just waiting to, throw money at their new business idea, and we know that's not really true.
Yeah, not at all. Market research, that's essential.
All right.
You could be, the best underwater basket weaver on the planet.
Okay.
But if there's no demand for that where you live...
You're sunk before you even start, right?
Exactly. And that's where those too good to be true articles, they could actually do more harm than good.
Okay.
They get people excited about an idea without really addressing the nitty-gritty of what it takes to run a business.
And speaking of too good to be true, I gotta admit, some of those income claims, come on. Earn 6 figures from home in your first year? Yeah, right, maybe for a tiny percentage of people, but what about the rest of us?
It's like those weight loss ads. Lose 30 pounds in a week eating only ice cream. Like, yeah, I guess it's technically possible, but not exactly a recipe for, like, lasting success, is it?
Exactly. And you know what else I noticed? A lot of these articles, they just skip over the legal stuff. Business licenses, permits, taxes, all the fun stuff that nobody wants to think about.
Which is why doing your research is so important.
Yes.
Don't just take those articles at face value. If something seems interesting, dig deeper. What are the legal requirements in your city, in your state? Any specific permits or licenses you need to operate? What about insurance?
It's so true. Imagine like spending months perfecting your, I don't know, your hand-knitted dog sweaters, only to find out that what your town really wants is like Chihuahua-sized leather jackets. Or even worse, that you need some special permit to sell anything handmade at the local market.
Exactly. And speaking of being prepared, let's talk about skills.
Okay.
Passion. Yeah, that's great. Essential even. But it needs to translate into actual expertise. You have to be able to deliver high-quality results.
Yeah, you know, I might be super passionate about baking, but if my cakes always come out of the oven looking like a toddler's art project, well, that's going to be a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Exactly. So for everyone listening, before you quit your job and invest in like 50 pounds of flour and sugar, ask yourself, is there really a demand for what I'm offering where I live? And be honest about your skills. Are you actually good enough to succeed in this market?
I love that you brought that up. We've done a lot of reality checks today. And I think it's really important. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of starting a business for under $100, but you got to be realistic.
For sure.
So for our listeners who might be feeling a little overwhelmed, and I wouldn't blame you, what's the practical way to look at these low-cost business ideas? What should people be looking for? What signals? You know, real potentials. So we've talked about passion, skills, market demand. It sounds like you need all three to really have a chance at making a business work.
That's it. Think of it like a stool. You know, it needs all three legs to stand up.
Right.
Passion, that's your fuel, your why. Skills are your tools, the how. And that market demand, well, that's like the oxygen that keeps your business alive.
Passion, skills, market demand. I like that. But where does the, the under $100 part fit in? We've kind of moved past that initial idea.
It's not really about limiting yourself to only ideas that cost basically nothing to start. It's more about being smart with your risk.
Yeah.
Test the waters before you jump in head first.
So maybe don't quit your day job just yet. At least not until you've tested things out a bit.
Exactly. That's the great thing about a side hustle.
Yeah.
You can try out your idea, see if it gets any traction without going all in.
Makes sense. You can test your product, work out the kinks, start building that customer base.
Right.
All while still having the safety net of your regular paycheck.
Exactly. And speaking of treating it like a business,
yeah,
I think a lot of people, they hear side hustle and they think, oh, this is just for fun, like a hobby. I don't need to take it so seriously.
Which can be a recipe for disaster, right? It's easy to fall into that trap of not setting goals, not really tracking your progress when you don't think of it as a real business.
Absolutely. Even if you're just starting out, treating it like a business from day one, that's so important.
Yeah.
Track your time, track your expenses, track your income, even if the numbers are small.
There's some really good free apps out there to help with that too. I've used Toggle Track and Clockify to track my time on different projects. Super helpful, even just to see where your hours are actually going.
Those are both great options. And even just a simple spreadsheet can work wonders for your expenses and what you're making.
Yeah, data is your friend, especially in those early stages. You need to know your numbers if you want to make good decisions about your business, whether it's a side hustle or your full-time gig.
Couldn't agree more. It's really easy to pour hours into something without seeing a return. And when you track everything, it helps you understand if you're moving in the right direction.
This has been such a great deep dive. We went from, all that initial excitement to a much more down-to-earth, realistic view of starting a business on a budget.
And hopefully with a better understanding that while it's definitely possible to turn a small investment into something really successful, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
So true. It's all about taking those first steps, learning along the way, and not being afraid to change things up if you need to.
Well said. It takes passion, perseverance, and a good dose of reality.
As we wrap up, here's a final thought for everyone listening. Instead of getting stuck on that $100 limit, think about this. What's one skill or passion you have, something you could use to create a service or a product that actually helps people? That's often where those really successful and fulfilling business ideas come from,